Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. For those of you on Instagram, notice I was looking. Oh, okay, there it is. My live stream was kind of going in and out, and screen froze for a second. So I was waiting to see whether it was going to find itself, and it seems to have found itself. So we are on, and we are good. Hope all of you had a wonderful weekend. I hope you had an opportunity to view yesterday my inaugural message for Donald Trump. I aired it 4 times yesterday, 8:30 my usual time, noon, 6 and 10. I haven't looked at the numbers yet this morning to see how it was doing. One of them had several hundred views within a couple of hours after I'd seen it. So people were definitely watching, but I wanted to see which one did best. And of course, I assume that different people are watching it each time. Nobody's watching it 4 times, so that different people are watching it each time. I'll figure out which one is doing best and probably boost that one, because I really wanted people, and I hope at some point the president will actually see an inaugural message that encourages, inspires, uplifts, calls us back to our foundational principles, as opposed to that abomination he had to endure at the National Cathedral from that Bishop Budd, I guess the name is pronounced. I don't know what her name is, Mary Ann Budd, I think it is. I don't know how the last name is pronounced, whether it's pronounced Bude or Bud. It's got an E on the end of it, but at any rate, no disrespect intended. Just don't appreciate what the woman represented, particularly since she was supposed to be representing Christianity, and what she was doing had absolutely nothing to do with Christianity. Okay, look, I've got a short program today because I'm going on with my friend Jeff Shreve on American Family Radio, and I'm going to be doing that at 9 o'clock. And so today's program is going to be a shortened version. I usually go about 15, 20 minutes longer than I'm able to go today. So let me get right to it. The first thing I want to remind everybody is that this coming Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, we're having a panel discussion on the crisis of the American family, and we're going to be focused on what we can do about it. You know, everybody's talking about the controversy of Robert F. Kennedy and his being nominated for Health and Human Services, to deal with a lot of issues that are important to be dealt with. But, the one issue I have not heard in the campaign at all, and the one issue I have not heard him talk about at all, is family. America suffered a severe breakdown of the family. I'm not looking to government to solve it, by the way, but I'm looking for government to get out of the way. I'm looking for government to stop incentivizing broken homes and broken families and giving women more money when there's no man in the home, and for more babies. And I mean, it is just, and I'm not in any way, of course, encouraging abortion, because as far as I'm concerned, if it's found out that you have an abortion, you ought to be disqualified from getting welfare. I'm serious. I just think if you're willing to kill your own progeny, then you don't need help from the government to do that. But that's another matter. But we are going to make sure that as many people as we are able to reach understand that the most fundamental social problem of our nation is not racism, it's not sexism, it's not all these other cockamamie ideas the left comes up with that we're all supposed to be so inundated by and we're overwhelmed by, and we're not DEI enough for them. I mean, just insanity. That's all it is, just rank insanity. These people belong in an insane asylum. We're going to focus on what is really important. What's important is family. You solve the problem of the family, you don't have the prison feeder that we've got now from all of these street gangs. Because if you got kids being raised by a mother and father in the home, the likelihood of them ending up in a gang, on drugs, in jail, committing suicide, committing murder, shrinks to virtually nothing. Not that there aren't people who are raised in healthy 2-parent families that don't have problems, because of course there are, but it drops to a minuscule level. And when there is no healthy two-parent family, it skyrockets to astronomical levels. And we want to deal with the social problems. Stop throwing money at them and start trying to put families back together. Start trying to encourage family formation, the proper rearing of children. And again, I'm not expecting government to do that. I'm expecting government to get out of the way. And to the extent that government resources are used for all of these social problems, stop spending money directly on the social problem and start spending money on dealing with the root of the problem. How about that? And instead of all of this money that we're spending right now trying to get people off of drugs, which is an abject failure, why don't we spend money trying to figure out how to help families be strong and healthy so that the kids never end up on drugs in the first place? How about that? So at any rate, like I said, I'm not looking to government to solve it. I think it's going to be up to us, the churches and communities and Christian organizations, because frankly, the left has completely rejected the two-parent monogamous married family. I mean, as far as they're concerned, there's no difference between getting married and shacking up, and there's no difference between a man and a woman getting married and two men getting married, and which can't really happen. Two men can't be married, okay? Two women can't be married. I know we have some kind of legal concoction we've dreamed up out of the wickedness of our own twisted imaginations, and where, you got the so-called same-sex marriage, but that's a fiction. There's no such thing. It's just two men living together and having sex, that's all. Or two women living together and having sex, that's all there is. And they try to approximate a marriage, but it's a facade, because marriage wasn't designed for them. And one of the most important aspects of marriage, they can't have children. Now, they can figure out a way to manufacture them. They can figure out a way to manipulate them, their way into having them, but they can't have them naturally. At any rate, that's just one of the problems. By the way, and so that's this coming Thursday, 4 p.m., live streamed on standamerica.us, on ewjacksonforamerica.com, on thecall.org, on my Facebook page, EWJacksonSR or EWJacksonForAmerica, and on all my Facebook pages, the Stand Facebook page, the Call Facebook page, my personal page, Bishop E.W. Jackson, and on Rumble, the real E.W. Jackson on Rumble. So it's going to be on all of those venues that you can watch this, and you can participate. You'll be able to comment by emailing us at comment@standinc.net, comment@standinc.net, okay? The other thing is, this very day, speaking of family, our special guest on our National Awakening Coalition call is none other than the new head of the March for Life. Jenny Bradley Lichter. Jenny Bradley Lichter. I don't know Jenny. I don't think I've ever met her, but she's going to be our guest today. That's at 12 noon Eastern Time. She as of February 1, she's the new head president of the March for Life, and she served as vice president of one of their sort of subsidiary organizations. Where is it? Okay, yeah. She was actually, I guess that's what the official title is, president of the March for Life Education and Defense Fund. I guess that's what it's called, the March for Life Education and Defense Fund. So, but at any rate, she's the new head of the March for Life, and we're going to be talking to her and hearing what she's got to say. She served as White House Deputy Assistant to the President and Deputy Director of the White House Domestic Policy Council. So she is somebody of substance, and we'll be talking to her today. But again, you know what? Family breakdown is what feeds abortion. It's what feeds the killing of unborn babies. Because instead of getting married, having children within the bonds of holy matrimony, we are promoting a promiscuous society in which people just go out and do whatever they want to do. And then when they get pregnant, if they don't want to have a baby, they just kill it. Now let's just tell it like it is. That's all this boils down to. As opposed to having a culture that promotes family, where as opposed to sleeping around, and all these women, all these feminists are always running around talking about my body. Yeah, right. Well, and it's your body. You don't have to have sex with somebody you don't want to have a baby with either. Do you? I mean, you're completely free to have that choice. But once it's a separate human being that is formed in your body, you don't, as far as I'm concerned, at that point, you don't get to do whatever you want to do. Because now we're talking about a separate human being with separate individual claims of constitutional and legal rights. That's the way it ought to be. So you all know that, and I will run this by her too, we are proposing a constitutional amendment that defines personhood and life at conception, because I think that's the only way we're going to get to a culture of life. We have got to persuade the American people that is a baby. Because that's, and here again, the question that we must pose to every single person who claims that they are quote unquote pro-choice. The question we have to pose to them is this: were you conceived? Of course, the answer is yes. When did it become you? When did it become you? And we know there's only one answer to that question. It was you from the very moment of conception. But it was you in a very early stage of development. Just like at whatever age you are now, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever stage you are now, you can't do now what you could do when you were a day old out of your mother's womb. I mean, you can do now what you couldn't do then. Was it still you? Of course it was. You couldn't talk. You couldn't hear, not in the sense that we hear, distinguish sounds and understanding what those sounds mean, like language, right? You couldn't walk. You couldn't feed yourself. I mean, you couldn't do anything but lay there. But was it you? Of course it was you. Well, then, was it you one moment before you came out of your mother's womb? Obviously. Oh, but what about a month before? Was it not you a month before? Was it not you 2 months before? Was it not you 3 months before? Was it not you 4, 5, 6 months before? See, reductio ad absurdum. You can't find the point at which you can say, oh, that's the moment. That's the moment it became me. 17 weeks, 3 days, 2 hours, and 15 minutes in. Then it became me. It was you from the very beginning. The entire blueprint of your DNA, of who you would become. Your skin, your eye color, your hair color and texture, your leaving aside variables such as nutrition and stable environment, but your height, your body size and shape, all of it was there already. It just hadn't fully developed into who you were going to become as you matured and grew. And we know that process takes place over a period of time. I mean, so the guy who is 7 feet tall was once a baby, maybe 22, 23 inches long. Not 7 feet tall, but 22, 23 inches long when born. Was it him? Of course it was. Well, wait, but it wasn't 17 feet tall, dunking basketballs. No, it was him at just an early stage of development. So I think that's where we've got to go. I think if we can persuade the nation, I've said this before, I will say it again, I really believe this with all my heart. What we're dealing with this baby killing industry is a matter of spiritual blindness And it is akin to the same spiritual blindness that allowed people to justify slavery. They didn't have the revelation of it. They couldn't see it. Well, they're not quite human. Well, they're not like us. Well, they're different. This is the only thing they can do. They can't live with that. They have to be slaves. That's what God ordained. I mean, all these justifications, and every single one of them was a lie. Every single one of them was a lie. During slavery, there were people who were enslaved who were as inherently smart as Ben Carson. And yet people running around saying, well, they're not quite human. They're not capable. They're not. But there was no opportunity to develop intellectually. There was no opportunity to get that kind of training. There was no opportunity for that kind of education. And so what happened? Persons just remained in slavery. They couldn't read, they couldn't write because they weren't allowed to be taught that. And it sort of became a self-fulfilling prophecy. See, they're not like us, they're not. But it was all just moral blindness. Now that we've awakened to it, we wouldn't consider. I mean, no normal person thinks, I say normal person, thinks, well, it would be great to have a slave. No normal person thinks that way. Certainly no Christian thinks that way. We know better. But during the era of slavery in our country and in Europe and around the world, people thought it was just a perfectly appropriate and normal thing to do. And, everybody's happy. The slaves are happy. The slave masters are happy. What's the problem? And we're doing the same thing with unborn babies. Well, it's not a baby. It's not a child. It's not a life. It's not a person. It's none of that. It's not, no. But yet, you went through every one of those stages as well. I think it was Ronald Reagan who used to say, all the people who support abortion are already alive. All the people who support abortion got to be born. But they want to deprive that right and that ability of someone else. Someone, by the way, else just like them. Okay. Well, we'll see where the discussion goes today because I really believe this is a tough issue, and I think a lot of pro-life organizations are afraid to go that far. But I think if we want to be a pro-life culture, just like if you want to be a culture in which slavery doesn't exist, you've got to at some point bite the bullet and say this is inherently and morally wrong and it cannot be justified. And then you have a different kind of culture. And I think we've got to say of abortion, this is inherently morally wrong and it cannot be justified. And then you've got a life culture, not a death culture. Okay. Oh, wow. I spent more time on that than I thought, but, that's par for the course, right? So I got those two things out of the way. Look, I think that the big thing right now, as far as I am concerned, that we are grappling with here is President Donald Trump's commendably aggressive effort to set things right and get it done quickly. And we're now having this debate. I had a friend call me, as a matter of fact, and asked me about the tariffs and say, I'm a little bit concerned about the tariffs. And, there are a lot of business people and people who claim to be economic experts who are concerned about the tariffs. But I reminded them, and I'll remind you, President Trump is a master negotiator. And we see what he did already with Canada and with Mexico, threatening these heavy tariffs. And we'll see what's going to happen with China, but threatening these heavy tariffs. And these countries go apoplectic. Their leaders go apoplectic. He can't do that. It's going to hurt people. It's going to raise prices. It's going to destroy the economy. And they just go run around with their hair on fire. And Donald Trump just calmly says, this is what we want. You're no longer going to take advantage of us. Put up or shut up. And guess what? the countries tend to come around and start trying to figure out what they can do in order to meet President Trump's demands. And that's exactly what's happening here. I'm convinced that's what's going to happen with TikTok. I think TikTok will ultimately be completely under American control. Now, again, I don't think you can force China to sell, but assuming they have any rationality in them whatsoever, and that's doubtful for communists, by the way, but assuming they have any rationality in them whatsoever, they will say, we're not going to be able to keep it. Let's take our money and go. Notice they haven't done that so far, but I think that's where they will ultimately land. And again, if they don't land there, then TikTok will simply have to shut down. But I think that's where it will go, because I think that's what President Trump will ultimately negotiate. He didn't want TikTok shut down. And by the way, I've said before, I didn't want TikTok. I don't want TikTok shut down either. I just want China out of it. Very simple. People want to ban TikTok. I mean, TikTok's got apparently some bad stuff on it. But again, but the answer is not to ban it. The answer is not to violate the First Amendment liberties of the people who are using it. The answer is to have other kinds of people using it who are going to put out speech that is better than, a higher quality than, more cogent than, more logical than, more factual than the people who are putting out a bunch of junk. And the people who are putting out stuff that's simply prurient and just really disgusting. And the people who are trying to, well, with China out of it, at least we don't have to be concerned about a foreign adversary, enemy really, trying to brainwash our children and teach them to hate America and teach them the joys of communism one way or the other. And obviously they don't just come right out and say that, but it's subtle, you know. Teach them to be sexual. So I don't have a problem with TikTok remaining in effect and operating. And as long as, again, it's an open forum for freedom of speech, I'll use it myself. I'm using it now. I'm waiting for the last shoe to drop to get China out of the picture, because if China's not out of the picture, again, it's going to have to close down. That I will accept. I would accept nothing less. I don't think the president will either. And I think he knows that's where the country is. That seems to be a bipartisan issue. Even some of these Democrats have enough sense to know that you can't submit our country to the influence and power of a foreign enemy government that is completely antithetical to everything we represent and keep getting elected. I mean, at some point, the American people are going to say, well, wait a minute, why are you supporting them when they want to destroy us? I think most Democrats probably would say, well, because we're communists and they're communists, and so we get along. We don't get along with these American capitalists because we're communists and they're capitalists. I think that's what Tim Walz's affection and Bernie Sanders' affection is for these communist countries, Cuba and the former Soviet Union and China, because they like totalitarianism. They like government force. They like forcing people to conform. They like having all that power. They like being able to redistribute the wealth equitably. Yeah, right. But they love it. That's why they like to go there and vacation and visit and mix and mingle, because, man, it just feels good to be around people of like mind. You come to this country and you have all these radical crazies who believe in the Constitution and freedom of speech and freedom of religion and the right to keep and bear arms. And whoa, where'd these crazy people come from? Which is why essentially they don't like our country. They don't like our Judeo-Christian value system, and they don't like our constitutional limitations on the power of government. But they love these totalitarian countries that can do anything to anybody they want to do to force them into compliance. You remember some of these politicians were bragging about how efficient China was in dealing with COVID? Well, yeah, because you don't obey them, they shoot you. And wanted to denounce Americans who were questioning all the garbage that was being spewed at us. And follow the science. These are the facts. And we were, yeah, okay, right, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we find out, just as we suspected, that they were lying to us. Just as we suspected. Remember? It is tinfoil hat thinking that the virus came out of the Wuhan laboratory. Remember that? Oh, well, now the CIA is saying, yeah, it came, it came out of a lab. Oh, really? We were being told we were crazy conspiratorial thinkers for even suggesting that. What's wrong with you? There's something wrong with you to even suggest that. I mean, okay, folks. Well, listen, God bless each and every one of you. Tune in today, 12 noon. Go to our website, standamerica.us, for the call-in, because today's conference call at 12 noon Eastern Time is a call-in with the new president of the March for Life. We're going to be talking about this whole issue of life and the culture of life in our country. And, of course, don't forget, put on your calendar, Thursday, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, at any of the venues. However you watch me now, you'll be able to watch me and watch the panel discussion on Thursday at 4 on the crisis of the American family. God bless everybody. I love you. Pray for me. I'm praying for you. And you know what to do. Stand up, step up, speak up, and refuse to back up. Because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side.